of the day.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right. Jared, what's going on?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got you. And Carmen, you are self-muted, so you have to take yourself off of mute. And I sent you the webcam request there to Carmen. But Carmen, you gotta take yourself off of mute there so we can hear you. So for those of you that are here, we've got 2 more sessions to go, and I'm super stoked and excited about it. Let me just I'll pull it up here on my other screen so I can read it off. We got Jared and Carmen right now, which is really going to be a fun session, and then we're closing out with Dean DaCosta and Jonah Manning. So both of those 2 will be on immediately following, and that's it. That's gonna conclude both days. So I like to say we saved the best for last, but I think everybody was pretty good. And we'll see how you guys do. I heard Carmen.
You did not save the best for nearest last.
I heard
you might have saved the best for last, but not very bad.
Carmen, I heard Carmen's pretty good, but I'm not sure about Jared. I heard
pretty shitty actually.
That's the opposite.
Mixed reviews. So, all right, good guys. I'm gonna stop talking. Carmen, looks like I sent you the camera request. I don't know if you're coming on or not, but I'm gonna get myself off the camera, and we'll go from there. Do you want us to facilitate questions during, or hold to the end?
Oh, you can do it during. I don't know.
I'll break in with some questions as they pop in then.
All right. So you're not seeing me because I am in a big fight apparently with GoToWebinar, and they kind of owe me money, and I have requested several times, and they've told me several times that I will be able to participate in webinars, but it's not working. So Jared is actually in charge of my Prezo.
And can you hear me okay, Carmen?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep. Just so you can boss me around, let me know when to press next and all that good stuff.
All right. Okay, I'm going to try to go through this fairly quickly and leave the fun for you. So first of all, for people who don't know me, my name's Carmen Hudson, and I have a tear sheet at the end, so you'll figure out how to get in touch with me. But essentially, we have been asked to help some sourcers prepare for their next for their open roles. And I'm going to talk a little bit, I think, about what others have touched on but haven't quite gone into, and that is the preparation for a couple of roles. So we got 3 people to volunteer to send us their open positions. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about how I prepared for them. And then you, Jeremy, you're going to dive into how you'd actually source for them, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to do like a live thing. Ashley, you can launch the poll whenever. That way I keep all this crap closed. So yeah, I'll just do a live thing, and there's a poll if anyone's into it. But go ahead, Carmen.
Awesome. Cool. So first of all, just by way of introduction, I am a consultant for a company called Recruiting Toolbox, and we don't get to do much sourcing training anymore. I used to do a lot more, and now it's 3-4 times a year, maybe I get invited to help people source. So I actually love this stuff, and so I try to keep myself immersed in how to do it. So we asked some folks to send us their recs, and I kind of talked about if I were going in blind, as I am actually, because I don't source very often, how would I actually approach these roles? What would I do before I even have a conversation with the hiring manager? And I think it's really important to kind of highlight that. Really important to actually have a conversation. Hey, good? All right. It's really important to have a conversation with the hiring manager if you can. And what you'll see in my last set of slides is that sometimes it's not possible, but if you can, to have a conversation with your hiring manager. So in this case, I was looking for, just to start off, a senior back-end engineer for a fairly well-known company with its headquarters in New York and in Israel. And they're looking for someone who can help them really just increase conversions online. And so they're looking for a back-end engineer who will really just help them build tools to get people engaged. And a lot of their tools include rating tools or feedback tools or tools for communication. So that's not enough information for me to actually find the best candidate. But before I go to that manager, I'm going to take everything that I get to figure out exactly what it is that I'm supposed to be looking for and to get myself in the right footing. Otherwise, I could be floundering around and submitting resumes to this for weeks without getting it right. And I like to cut that out. But before I cut that down to let me just figure out what the hiring manager is looking for, I'm going to go in with a full set of questions. I'm going to go in having done a full set of homework. So in this case, for a backend engineer, and I will tell you, this can take anywhere from 5 or 10 minutes if you're really well immersed in this area, or it could take anywhere. It could take a day if this is not your area of expertise, if this is something that you're learning. You just have to figure that out. You have to figure out, you know what, I've looked for backend engineers, a lot of different spaces. This one shouldn't be too hard. Or it could be, I've looked for 1 or 2 backend engineers, but I probably need to do some work. So this might take me half a day. Doing this work, once you've sort of gathered your information, it's really important that you save it so that the next time that you have to do it, that you don't have to go back through this again. In this case, the skills, they've got this great long ad, and this ad is great for your backend engineer, but it's not great for me, the sourcer. They're looking for somebody with 5 years of experience, highly scalable applications, required to be fluent in at least 2 programming languages, plus experience with Golang, Node.js. Those are some of the things that I'm going to test really hard when I go in with the hiring manager, because they want someone with 5+ years of experience. I'll tell you what I found out about this company. First thing that I went and I looked for their engineers just on LinkedIn, just to find profiles of their folks, to find out, how advanced were they, how much experience did they have, how they compared to other companies, those kinds of things. And these folks were kind of in the middle. So 5 years, I would test that. I would test that with someone with 3 years of experience. I might even test that with someone with 2 years of experience, but looked like they had a great educational background. I would go back again and look at candidates that I go into LinkedIn and just looked at candidates that were there and moved on. And that was really interesting, because I looked at the candidates who were there for a few years, 1 or 2 years, maybe 3 years, and moved on. They actually moved on to great companies like Microsoft and Amazon. So told me that this was a pretty high level engineer, but that the 5 years of experience wasn't quite required. I think they put that on because they want someone with a great capacity for learning, but 5 years maybe not so thrilled. I would test that with the hiring manager once I'd done that back-end research. I'd ask about people who were there, right? Plus experiences include Go or Node.js or Ruby, good understanding of design patterns, and passion for performance and scale, experience with SQL, NoSQL databases, and Docker, Kubernetes, ECS, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all the things that I want to learn more about. I also got from the recruiter just this candidate scorecard. So this is sort of what the hiring manager has put together. The hiring managers have put together to kind of talk about how they're going to make their decision, and this is very helpful. So code quality is very important, project delivery, ownership, accountability, those kinds of things. Those kinds of things are important. They're not as important to me as the sourcer. I'm really right now really focused on finding them the skills that they're looking for. And then just a little bit of information I got there from their company website about who they are and what they do. They develop technology for online discourse, mainly through chat features or through feedback features on websites. They're really looking at that connection between what people view online and what they say about it. And so they are out there, they're all over news sites and other kinds of websites. Second thing that I'm going to do, and we can go to the next slide, Jeremy. Thank you again for hosting me. Sorry, I can't.
My pleasure.
I feel so sad that I can't be there, this is a good hair day for me too. In any case, I want to figure out what this person is there to do. Build highly scalable applications. Industries in this particular case include television media industries, but I want to know if they can come from other industries. And as I looked at the backgrounds of some of the folks who were there, it looks like possibly they could. I double checked that with the hiring manager. I'm fluent in any two programming languages, but Go and Ruby, Node.js are the preferred languages. Background in databases and background in Docker, Kubernetes, ECS, Nomad, etc. As I start to look at that middle section, like what are they fluent in, and looking at the programming languages, that's where, as a recruiter, my sort of decision making starts to drop, right? That's where my knowledge starts to drop. So moving to the next slide, I would go more deeply into what these things were. And this is the part that I find that recruiters don't do enough of. And I will tell you, I am old. And way back in the day, way back when I first met Jeremy, I come from Amazon. And one of the things that I learned at Amazon as just a recruiter who was just trying to figure out how to get it done, it was really just ask questions and figure things out before you ask questions. Start with like a little basic bit of knowledge and then launch from there. And you will get so much more participation and engagement from your hiring managers that eventually you will understand this a lot better and they will start having even more dynamic conversations with you. But you've got to start first by understanding. And so I need to understand Go. I need to understand it as a language, that it was developed and designed by Google. So I can understand where candidates might be, where they might go, where they might come from based on this language. Node.js is a free open source language, and just really being very deeply immersed in what these things are. And I just go to wherever to pull this information. I'll go and I'll plug in right into my web browser. Just I'll type in Go, the programming language, or I'll type in Ruby on Rails. I'll type in JavaScript, and I'll do this over and over and over and over again until I get to the place where I feel very comfortable talking about each of these languages, each of these tools, right? I won't talk about Kubernetes until I understand what it is. And if that means I have to go deeper and deeper and deeper, that's exactly what I'll do. And so that's what I really want to encourage you to do before you actually go in and start sourcing candidates, start having conversations with hiring managers. If you go into a hiring manager and you ask, well, what is Kubernetes? And you've not read one thing about it, you're in trouble. You're in trouble and you're not getting a great rating. I think I'll move on to the fourth slide there. And so my fourth slide, I just started doing a little bit of search. I went into, I used Seekout, but now I'm really excited and I want to try this in Loxo. And I used the GitHub profiles. I just want to see what people were talking about. I got 81 candidates, I think based on location for this particular program. And I found one, Jing Su, who looked like she was like a great candidate. She came out of an environment where she was actually in a hospital environment, but didn't look like she had huge connection to healthcare. And as I read about her skills, she looked she looked very tied to this role. She looked like she would be a good person in this role. And sure enough, I went back and I checked her live LinkedIn profile, and she got a job recently at Microsoft. So I was on the right path, but I didn't quite catch her fast enough. So she looks like in April she went to Microsoft as a software engineer, and that seems to be the pattern for people who move from this company to their next role, from this company to Amazon, from this company to Microsoft, from this company to other large software developer. And so it told me that I was probably on the right path. I have quite a few questions still for my hiring manager. I want to go back and get some more details around this position, around exactly what they'd be doing, exactly why they needed a senior, really what did they find in terms of candidates who failed, and then promise to go back with 4 or 5 really great candidates. And I would stop there. I wouldn't go back with 10 great candidates. I'd go with 4 or 5 if I could do that, and I'd get that feedback before I would go and burn through any more. This doesn't seem like it's a rich, it doesn't seem like it's a very rich candidate pool, so I want to go very slowly and figure out exactly the type of person that would be appropriate for this role. So just thinking about how are you thinking about your position before you even source for it, before you have that conversation with your hiring manager about sourcing is important. So we move on to number 5, slide 5. I've got another rec. This was a senior cryptography researcher. And I love this stuff because I don't even know what this is. I totally had never seen this position before. And it seems like it sits a little bit above and ahead of the software development team. And is really thinking about really all of the security and how someone might actually break into a website or web device. And so I had to go all the way back and understand cryptography. I had to go back and I looked at this job description. Again, there is no way I could recruit off this job description. I'd first have to have a conversation with the hiring manager. They've got 8 or 10 different skills that they'd like to see. I need some of these pulled out, either as this is incredibly important or pushback, as in this would be a nice to have. And then I just have no idea in terms of what they'd actually be doing. And I, as I read through the personal qualities, they must enjoy challenges and putting out fires, highly dependable team player, willingness to travel, apparently to client sites, and outstanding attention to detail. All this is great, but it doesn't quite tell me exactly what this person is going to be doing. And as I looked at other cryptography researchers, and there are not a lot of them actually online, I couldn't tell exactly what this person would be doing, so I would have to go back. But before I would commit to doing that, I go through each of these terms, cryptography analysis, I go through elliptic curve cryptography. I really want to understand everything that I could about cryptography. And I think if you, this presentation I'll share with anyone, if you go through and click on some of these, you'll find that I really did just decide just to go out and Google as much as I could and learn as much as I could. Another source that I like to use is the DICE. It's still, after all these years, it still works really well. It does a great job of, and if you go to the next, I think the next slide, pull up the DICE skills index. It does a nice job of really helping me understand where cryptography sits. And that might be a great starting point for the hiring manager to see this. And he might see this and say, or she might see this and say, this is completely wrong. I would focus here. This is what's most important to me. But if I go to that hiring manager without having done this work, I am really wasting what would be, I think, a really great opportunity to learn and to get better at what I do. I went out and I did a primer on elliptical curves, cryptography. I really do need to understand this much, much better before I would even be in any position to reach out to a hiring manager. And that's on me. If I go to this hiring manager without having done this and then they dismiss me the next time, it's because I didn't do my homework and understand this deeply in advance. The next slide is for, this one's more of, I guessed, a third-party recruiter. And so I know that many of you in the audience are third-party recruiters, and this was for, like, I had never recruited in the avionics industry. I've never I've not recruited very much in the top secret clearance industry. Definitely not something this technical. So thank you to all of you who presented me with recs for whom I was not familiar. But I needed to understand this completely and deeply. And if I needed to do so fast, I assume that I need to do so fast. I need to pull out everything that is important in this rec and learn about it quickly. And so the first thing that I realized is that as I put these into, especially a senior level person, as I assume this one would be, as I put this into my just what's out there, not much came back. And so I'm gonna have to dig into some specific places to find someone like this. So if we go to the next slide, I just went through and I just pulled out all of those terms that were interesting to me. OpenVX, it's an industry working group of 28 defense contractors. So my guess is anyone that's going to work on these roles probably came out of one of those 28. So I'm going to want to find out what that list looks like. What do they work with? They work with 10 gigabit Ethernet. They work with field programmable gate arrays. They work with PCI Express. Just understanding even what the Ethernet codes look like. All of this is incredibly important for me to digest and to digest quickly. So I'm just going to pull out those things. I'm going to pull out the headlines for the most part. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to read a few scholarly articles. I was hoping that maybe the scholarly people were the same as the candidates. They weren't. They were mainly attached to universities, and they were fairly young, so that wasn't getting me what I needed. And I can't remember how, but I came up in the middle of the night last night with MILCOM, which is a conference on military communication. And as I started to plug in folks with these job titles, they started to show up, and I think I've done a really, I think I actually provided a link there. They're not having the conference this year. They're moving it until 2020 because of COVID. But sure enough, I was able to find some great military and non-military people who had some of this experience, who were talking about some of these topics, and those are the people that I would go to after I have immersed myself in the language of this position and I understand it, even on a very basic tactical level. I can call them up and say, this is what I understand that you do. This is how I understand that you do it. These are the people that I'm looking for. Can you help me? But before I've done that, before I would, and I probably would not, with a position like this that is difficult to understand, I would probably spend a couple days on it before I'd even make the first phone call. But from this conference, I was able to get a few people that I'd actually make a call to. So that's how I would prepare to do any of these recs. I would actually really pull together as much information as I could. I would digest it, I would read it, I would reread it. I save these documents because I go back to them. I start from some of these every single time. It's just my way of learning. The other piece of learning, Jer, if you take me to the next slide, I am the person behind Recruiter Hunt. So if any of you have signed up for Recruiter Hunt, it's just a series of websites that are useful for recruiters, both free and paid. So you'll find Loxo there. You'll find you know, Hire Our Heroes or Crosswalk or other sites where you'll find military terms defined. And I've divided it into about 30 different categories. So there's research and competitive intelligence. There are also job boards. There's every kind of research that's available, and it's free. And I have someone who helps me work on it. So it's out there. And there's a weekly newsletter. So if you sign up, you'll get the newsletter as well, just to let you know of new tools. That's what I brought. I'll stop there. Any questions?
I was fully expecting a picture of you on the last slide, but this must be your good-looking cousin, the model.
It's a model from the internet that I found late last night.
I like that he's writing stuff down. Like
he's writing stuff down, and which is you know, another part of this. At the very least, I just keep a wonky, you know, PowerPoint slide or either, you know, just a set of slides to help me figure out every single role that I recruit for.
We do have one. We do have one question that came in, Jared, before you kick off. Where do you store your notes when you're taking all of these notes? What do you do with them? Where do you store them?
I've had different systems, but I will tell you, I just create a folder and I just throw it in each folder. I create a folder for each client and I throw it in each folder. And I don't do much of this any longer. So a lot of this I will just, you know, I can throw in a folder. If you're looking for just a better way of tracking this, the Microsoft Notes or even leveraging something like, and it's so weird, my Microsoft tools are coming through for me today. The Microsoft To Do, that will keep your records for forever. I just like to be able to return to every single item that I save. I don't leave it out there for chance. And I return the stuff that I've had for 5 years, 10 years.
Perfect. All right. So, Jer, I guess we're moving over to you now. Is that right?
Sweet. Unless someone else wants to go, Mike, you want to hop in?
He will hop in. Let's not invite him.
I know, right? Don't poke the bear. Okay, so I only have 2 slides. I have a pair of slides. Oops, wrong button. By way of introduction, if you don't know who I am, Jeremy, if you've known me almost 20 years, like Carmen. Funny story, actually, real quick, just to eat into my time a little bit, when Carmen was at Amazon. So I actually placed someone at Amazon through Sarah and John back in the day. And he reached, and this is what's crazy. His name's Jeremy, and he reached out today and said, hey, remember 17 years ago when you emailed an Australian named Jeremy? I've been at Amazon ever since. You changed my life.
Wow. Wow. And you did change his life too.
Yeah, and that's the power of sourcing, right? Is you're offering someone, and same with recruiting, but especially on the very beginning of the entire process, which is, you know, finding someone and engaging with them. So that's super awesome. I never got paid for that, but at least the dude got a great job and a great lifestyle from it.
Wow, you never got paid for it. Well, okay, we won't go into that, but
we'll have to look into that old invoice. So yeah. Jer's pair of slides then, we'll go live after that. That's my daughter, Olive. It's not Marshmallow or Slushy or any of the cool DJs out
I
there.
think you're too large.
It's the screen's too big?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I wonder if I can make it a little bit less big. Oh, is it because of my camera? I'll just turn my camera on.
I think, Jared, I think you're good. It'll be dependent upon the individual's screen. They'll be able to slide and adjust.
Yeah, maybe it's just on Carmen's side. I'm so huge, but does that look okay as well?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
All right, cool. So it's just, anyways, pair of slides, and then I'm going to go live anyways. I can turn the camera back on if you guys really want to see it, but I'm a good-looking redhead. So the very first slide, I think a secret in the industry is, you know, and I'm not trying to pick on vendor sponsors. I'm a third-party recruiter / sourcer / brand guy, been in the game over 20 years, but there are tools out there. I wouldn't even say tools. There are data sets out there that you can put your own tools on, or you can import that data into HireTool Enterprise or Seek Out, I think, Loxo, I'm pretty sure, I don't know for a fact, Matt and I will have to connect. But if you say, let's say you had a checkbook and you wanted to go purchase 380 million LinkedIn profiles, or let's just say unique business profiles to find people, and maybe those are already scraped, indexed, tagged, categorized, refreshed. I think every 6 months on this one, they get through the 380 million. And you've got, like I said, you've got, you know, five out of $5 signs. Go for it. Skip the line. This is your fast pass. I have 400,000 people in my Google Drive. But if you want to get 380 million, you know, be my guest. Don't forget the shirt. I was going to do that at the end, but there is a shirt. That's also the marshmallow version. Okay, so what we're going to do today is I'm literally going to start with that first role, and I'm going to actually source. I think a lot of people, and let's just start with.
Hey, Jared, we're getting requests for your camera here.
So oh, geez.
Send you back in.
These people. Hi. Should I put my PayPal link so people can tip? I look very red with this light. Okay.
Look good.
I'm just a little sunburned from the lake, I guess, apparently. Okay, so let me know if my sizing is going to be okay. I'm going to, since I'm sharing my screen, make my face cam ultra small here. But yeah, so before I get started, I always do 3 things. The first one is that pre-sourcing or research or discovery process that Carmen already went through, so I don't have to repeat that. But like hers and I's are extremely identical, so I would do that. I would have, you know, the rec intake with the hiring manager. If I'm the sourcer on the role, and I'll play sourcer today. If I'm sourcer on the role, let's say Carmen's the recruiter, I want to do my own research. We'll pair up and discuss, like, hey, I found out this about Golang. Oh, I found out this about Go. I found putting Golang in my initial Boolean strings was working better than putting just Go, because Go got me a bunch of weird results. Let's fast forward to the next step. And the next step is doing some company research. Hopefully I'm logged into some of these. Hopefully I won't show my password. But for the Golang one, I'm going to start on Crunchbase. And I'm going to eventually get to HireTool. And I could show you Seek Out as well, but a lot of people have. I could show you Boolean on Google, but a lot of people have. I'm going to go ahead and show you that HireTool Enterprise and show you just real quickly that it's searching the people I've imported as well as the open web. And I think that's another misnomer is people are like, oh, I'm just going to go purchase Oxy data, or I've just recently heard about human predictions or what have you, and I'm going to go get this large data set. It's like, great, but do you have a way to search that and then put that work into a certain flow so that later on, like Carmen said, when you get the role again, you can reference your material, but also have a kickstart. You might already have 20 people to reach out to, and you only need to find another 100 fresh ones. And then that cumulative compound effect becomes super, super valuable over time. So the very first thing, and I don't know, it's always telling me, hey, you should follow these people. The very first thing is I'm going to look at the company, and I'm going to, fancy word, but obfuscate the company name like Carmen did. And I'm just going to use a company we all know, and I'm going to pretend the backend engineer roles for them. And I'll show you how this will work for when we send this. So I always follow it first, then I search it up. Just like if you're on LinkedIn, right? Like let's talk about Sourcer Recruiter basics. If you're on LinkedIn and you connect and you're working for a hiring manager and a recruiter as a sourcer, let's say, go connect with those people, go follow those people. Every single candidate you reach out to, send them a connection request, because now you already have their email, so plug their email and send them a connection request. I've done that, and I have, not to low-key flex, but it's taken 20, or I guess LinkedIn's been out since like 04, so 16 years, and I have 16,000, so about 1,000 a year. But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to look up the company, I'm going to learn about the company. I'm not sponsored by Crunchbase Pro. I pay $394 annually or something. So get yourself, and there's lots of tools as well. I would also cross-reference, so my actual workflow, not hypothetical, not like, hey, I think this will work, or academic, recycle of what's already been set out there, but I'll actually show you what I do is I'll put on 2 monitors. We only got 1 monitor in this podcast room, but I would go into my LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You can see it's here in my favorites, and sign in, and I would put these side by side. So similar to our good old friend Batman. Oh, let's see if this comes out on my watch, 2FA. But I would put the 2 different kind of views or dossiers on the company that I'm sourcing for. The reason I'm going to do that is because I want to get to know. Oh yes, we got a code. Hope you guys don't hack me. This is the hardcore sourcing crew, right? Okay. I think you'd still need to know my password, and it's not I love Carmen, so I've already used that one. That's no joke. I had that one when we started S7. It's pretty funny. It's true. Wow. All right, so I did it as a keyword. We actually want to put it in the company box. We're just getting it warmed up here. All right, so Wework has, they're actually a customer of paired sourcing as well. So I've already done this research, and I have this somewhere, but they are a great company. They're having trouble with COVID, but they're a great company. And what we can learn about them is all over here. We can go to the news. We can look at the details. Like Carmen, I just go through it. But what I want to do is look at these lists. So as a sourcer, our currency, people think it's resumes. It's definitely not phone screens, because when you pick up a phone, you become a salesperson or a recruiter or something different, an employee or a vendor or whatever. But when you're doing real sourcing, hardcore legit sourcing, you're only doing a few things. One of those things is building lists. And so I want to know, and again, we're going to pretend, but let's say on this rec, when we did the intake that Carmen referenced, the hiring manager said, it'd be really dope if they came from maybe a real estate company in New York. Okay, great. So I'm going to pull that up. While that's going, I'm going to start looking. Let's say it's a security role as well. I'm going to start looking at the people through, and I'll get to why this is important, but through either LinkedIn Recruiter is fine, which I had before. Then I went down to LinkedIn Recruiter Lite and bought a few different licenses for obvious reasons. And now I'm on Sales Navigator, and I'm really enjoying that when you use the advanced search. And if we have time, I'll just demo that. Because again, I feel like people are saying, oh, I have to show things that aren't LinkedIn. Well, let's be real. As sourcers, if we don't spend like 50% of our time or 40% of our time on LinkedIn, somehow cross-referencing or X-ray, which sounds weird to say, but if we're not on LinkedIn, I don't know what the hell we're doing as a sourcer. There's a lot of other mystical things we can show you, but I don't think you're spending, 8 hours a day Googling. Cool. So I'm going to look at, other companies that look good. So, I've never heard of Orchard. That's in the real estate game. They've got 300, and the other thing I'm going to look at is like, awesome. They have $355 million in funding. So it's not some small boutique like Paired Sourcing where I work. It's a huge company. Well, it's a very large startup, let's say. It's there in New York. It's in the right domain. And so the next thing I'm going to do is open another tab and start going through all the people at Orchard. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to do this. And I face match or avatar match or profile pic match, right? I know it's this one. It says real estate. I know it's not this first one. The second one, I have no idea. I see real estate, boom, my eye pops over here. It's like, oh, that's the same one. Pop them up. They have 211 employees. I'm going to click on the decision makers. What I have found in my own journeys within LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and this is probably universal, is if I start going through all the people that are kind of tagged already as decision makers, then, and I always skip right to their experience, then I'm going to learn like what are some feeder companies. So literally, I like to whiteboard. It's an extra step to go whiteboard and then type the Boolean in. You can also use Notepad, which I was going to suggest to some of the presenters earlier today, so that you don't have a lot of stupid code to webinars in my way. I would just do Notepad because that way you can save it. It's like a whiteboard. And so I would just have another, scratch piece of paper. It doesn't matter what it is, because we'll type the Boolean later into whatever tool or whatever search engine that we want to. But I'm going to start building the company list, right? And so I'm going to write it in the form of Boolean, like take notes in the form of Boolean so you can copy pasta later. But I'm going to say, okay, this person came from Flatiron. I'm going to disregard the advisor rules because what I want to know is it he? Yep. Elijah was working as the vice president of engineering. You're going to do this like 50 times, so I'm just showing you one sample. Vice president of engineering at Flatiron Health before he came to be the CTO of Orchard. Now, correlation isn't causation. Just because they worked at Flatiron Health, this could be an edge case. But what I'm going to start doing is say, well, shit, I don't know if we can swear on this one. Shoot, they hired from Flatiron Health before, and maybe they would hire again. And by the way, they hired a decision maker. It was a VP. It must mean, and again, I'm guessing here because I have to, trust but verify with the hiring manager, and frankly, from my own emails while I'm waiting to hear back from the hiring manager, reach out to some people, some Golang folks at Flatiron. I got to figure out if they have the tech stack or not. That's step 2. But I'm going to start plugging in companies. Okay, so Flatiron Health or, right? And the reason I want to know is what Orchard hired, and this is where the more advanced stuff comes into, is when you're doing talent mapping or company list generation, you want to do, yes, I want to do Wework. I already have that list, frankly, in a section of my drive called Badass Boolean, which I could show you if we have time at the end. But I already have like what's the right company list for feeders, for the feeders for Wework, and that's been scrubbed. Next level is now that I've got another Golang search with them for a backend engineer, now I've got to start figuring out, well, what are those other companies? If I just plug in Orchard, Plenty Condos, Haven, EasyKnock, which actually I know EasyKnock, and LX Collection, if I just say pick those top 5 and plug them in, yeah, we're going to get 81 results or 40 results. And then we say backend engineer and it's 10. It's like not helpful. So I got to go one layer deeper. That's what I get paid for, to figure out those feeders. Okay, so that's enough on that. So that's what I use Crunchbase Pro and LinkedIn Sales Navigator is to start building these lists. Just to show you, so we actually have some Boolean here, is obviously we would have had Orchard, whoops, Orchard or Flatiron Health or Plenty Condos or Haven or EasyKnock. And be mindful too, if the company's called like, Software Incorporated and you just type software, like that's not going to be, it needs to be sort of unique. So Orchard might pull up the hardware store. Hey, if you know Node.js or some sort of JavaScript guy and you've really gotten to know Golang recently, okay, I don't care if you work at the Orchard's hardware store, but obviously that's not what we're looking for. So now I've got a very basic company list Boolean on my clipboard. I've stress tested some of these tools. I put 1,000 companies in, it seemed to work. It took a little bit, but that was typically an afternoon. I put like 2 to 4 hour session on to go build fresh Boolean. So that was like 10, 15 minutes. I'd have, you know, a bunch of these and then go in and start plugging them in. So for the sake of time, we're going to plug it into HRTX Enterprise, assuming I can log in here on this podcast laptop thingy. I logged into Chrome, so the assumption is I can log into anything. Cool. Oh, I was in. So if you don't know HRTX Enterprise, it used to be, at least in my UI, it used to be called HRTX Pro. I first caught wind of this kind of enhanced version towards the end of 2019. Around the holidays, we decided to pick it up for the year. We have multiple logins here at Paired Sourcing, but what I like to do is I like to, and it's probably not the most efficient way, but I like to start a new, I don't want to call it like a project, because it's not a project, but I want to start a fresh search every day for the same role and then dedupe. Because for me, and we pair up, so it's two of us, like you've seen kind of the format the last day or two is like we pair up. So you get, you know, my opinion on Monday and then my feeling on Wednesday after I spent Tuesday sourcing for that role. And I'll do multiple roles a day because that's obviously what I get paid to do. So let's say it's Carmen and I, we pair up on Monday. We've done a lot of company lists. We brought that to the pairing session. We're going to spend 2 hours generating as many candidates as possible. Maybe the last 45 minutes is reserved for curating, which is like Spotify, and you'll see it here in this UI, UX, is thumbs up or thumbs down, who to move forward in our workflow, who to send an email to, that sort of thing. I think that's a given. I think that's table stakes. Figuring out how to have the best results list so that you can go back and curate is probably the most important. So every day I'm prospecting, to use that analogy or metaphor. If I hit a gold vein, I'm pulling in my partner. I'm not going to distract them from what they're doing. I want them to be in flow state. But on Thursday at 10 a.m. or whenever we're supposed to jump on Hangouts or Google Meet and pair up and curate together, we're going to go through that list together. So we've populated a spreadsheet, Google Sheet and Drive. I'm going to say Carmen's 50 are at the top and mine are 51 through 100 or 101 or whatever. We're going to start at the top and Carmen's going to yes, no, maybe my people in front of me, and then we'll passionately debate if she thumbs down one of my awesome candidates. And then we're going to go through the rest and like vice versa. So the idea there is if we're both thumbs up, think of it again like Spotify. If you're both love that song, then great, let's share it to the next person in the decision chain. All right, so the very first thing, and you know, just a little plug for these guys, and again, I'm not sponsored by them. I just love being a customer and a user, heavy user, is they search across lots of different platforms. I think I've found that their healthcare is really good. Tech is obviously good. Like G&A roles, you know, general administration roles. We do mostly like, and sales is really good. We do tech, sales, exec. There's a lot of good leadership talent in here as well. So the very first thing we're going to do is companies, and we're going to mix a little manual, like notepad copy pasta with some AI, some like actual, you know, AI, ML, whatever you want to call it, which I think is super cool. So I want them to have in their background, whoops, broke my UI. I want them to have in their background these companies. Now I've got it in, I should have thought about this. I've got it in a couple different formats on my computer. So one of the ways I like to have it is in Boolean strings. I'm just going to fix this. The other way I like to have it is in just company names. So you would just have again, a spreadsheet, and one column would just literally be, you know, company name, company name, company name, company name. It's helpful when we go back and curate through whoever we're pairing up with and say, hey, are we sure we want Orchard on there? Because last time someone came in, they failed and they were at Orchard, and I think there's only like 2 more engineers that qualify there. Like, do we really want to have that on there, or is it a waste of time, right? And we'll scrub the list together. Once it's done, you can copy paste the results back in here, hit submit. That 750 million up top here becomes 226,000. Now, again, that's misleading. I really liked how Shally said it about Google yesterday, is like, don't worry if the number's super huge because they're always inflated. And there's, again, false positives. It's misleading information because the way this specific index works is like it's got Haven adoptions, which is not the Haven we were looking for, okay? The next thing is to hit this magic button. We're talking about like power tools. Well, if you don't have a really good company list, meaning you haven't spent the time to really put like 50 or 100 target companies, maybe the hiring manager said, they only can come from these 5, right? You ever get that one? Like they have to come from these 5 because that's my last 5 people were hired from those, and that's where we're going to go. Or you get a recruiter as a sourcer, and the recruiter says, oh, I heard Flatiron Health is laying off people, and our VP was from there. And so maybe you only have that. But I'm going to hit extended search. This says current or past. I have volume here, so I'm going to say current. You could have put it on current before. But my thought process behind this, I think this is where you add value as a sourcer, because your value is not to make some crazy, Boolean string and then go literally waste 3 hours sorting through that later to say, hey, I found this person. And then the recruiter is sitting there and they just bring them up on LinkedIn and they say, you spent 3 hours to find this person. And it took me like 0.3 seconds. And then you have to argue, oh, but they're good because I got to them through some blog, which people throw out. And I doubt any of you really actually read blogs for candidates. So maybe we should stop saying blogs. But anyhow, we've got that number down. Now, if we wanted to have it just current from just those companies, it's still pretty big because we have yet to put in title or skills or anything, and I have to hurry along here. But when you look at, this isn't going to be the best search ever, but we'll get to something of value, and we'll obviously have it saved so we can give it to the person that submitted. But we have the open web and we have the import. The import sourcing channel are the folks in my personal database that I've collected over 20 years, okay? It's 400,000 at paired sourcing in 5 years. It's the 16,000 on LinkedIn. It's a lot of people that I put in here because it's hard to search my spreadsheets. This thing does it for me, so shout out to them. But let's just quickly go in here, and we know that we want someone that, maybe just as a real basic search, we'll look in New York City and we'll just say people that have more than like 4 years of experience. My wife's name is Neri, so I always type that. Greater New York City area. I wouldn't worry about what it looks like. That's just because I have it all shrunky weird. Maybe 4 to 6, 6 to 8, 8 to 10, 10 to 15. Let's just start there because that's 1,100 people. Now, mandatory skills or keywords, we already know because I've said it a bazillion times, Golang. But another thing to give it that DevOps feel, I saw this on the spec as well, Docker. So we went from a bazillion to 80 to less than 10 because of the mandatory. We don't even have a title, and because it's these companies. So sometimes, frankly, I would screenshot that, pop it off in Slack to the hiring manager and be like, yo, you said only from those companies. I've got some people that look good. Peter and Lauren look good. I'll probably reach out to them. But dude, there's only like 9 people. And that's both from my database and all these 40 other platforms that the tool we're paying for as a company that we all decided to use. So, hey, hiring manager, if I don't hear back, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell him, look, we're going to go current or past, and then sift through those 20, which is not enough. And then I'm going to hit extended search, which tells the machine, find companies, not people, right? Find companies that are like these 5 I've put in. Now I've got 70 candidates in pool. So that's better, right? Like 70 is going to work. And one of the things that I probably should have done, I missed one of my filters. And I was saying 4 and above. So I'm going to have to filter out like 2 senior, 2 junior as I look at years, and also what title they've stayed at for those different years, because we really just want, software engineers, etc. I don't want someone that has moved into, like, say, a manager role. So at this point, my talent pool, if you want, my market snapshot is how I say it. I can go back with some talent insights, however you want to say, and say, hey, if we require Golang, which is new, and require Docker, which is, not super common as engineers. It's pretty common, but It's still pretty niche. It's not like we're saying JavaScript or something. It's only 40 people within 50 miles of New York. If I say have reload, or guess what, it's COVID, so I can go nationwide. If I just say, what's the entire market snapshot volume-wise? I don't know quality yet. It's apparently less than 200 in the United States, 150, cool. So let's pretend we have reload. So now it's that Spotify thumbs up, thumbs down, and Ryan, you can jump in at any time. But just to show how I calibrate is I say good fit, he worked at Uber. The way my mind works is I'm looking at I go bottom up. I just was trained that way, I guess. My tags that I put in already on Walter from last time we engaged, the system also generates some tags. Master's degree, great. An API thing that was important, I heard on the call, although I did not search for it or filter for it. Senior software engineer, it looks like, I don't know, I'd have to find out if he's kind of job hoppy, because I was told not to do job hoppy type people. Maybe we'll say not a fit for now. This person at Facebook just joined, although Compass online real estate platform, and they're in New York. He just joined in July. I might tag him as timing, right? Because I want to keep a hold of him for later for something else. This person, Wework and Linda, I'm gonna say good fit. They got Docker and Golang. This person at Acorns, they've been there a while. Computer engineering, oops, where'd Mitchell go? Say good fit. Now this person is a good fit, but they haven't been, so I want to make sure there's a tag here. I'm just going to say timing. Timing's not good because they just started in July at Facebook. I created a project called I Love Carmen. Save and start sourcing. Now, when you do this, this is where the AI part comes in big time. So you can kind of move on to other things, because it's going to search through my import. It's going to search the open web, and then it's going to serve me back those candidates, and then I have to go back through them again and decide who to put into workflow, and then obviously send them a sequence of emails, that sort of thing. So that's how I kick off a search, and then it's an iterative process to build on that, right? Finding out that you can't go nationwide obviously would change it. Finding out that doctor's not required, it's just a nice to have, that would change it. And so the iterative steps will yield different smaller pools, and those we would stitch together and call it a blend and send over to the hiring manager, say, hey, spot check this list of 100 or 50. Look at 10 or 5. If you like what you're seeing, I'm going to start sending them emails. Then it's just rinse, repeat. And that's what we do in a sprint. So I'll send this list to you, Ryan, after I go through it, so they can have that.
Good. Yeah, if you could send that list. We did have some questions around messaging here. So when you're, and I think you might have you were just touching on it. I don't know if you hit this earlier. Once you find your candidates, how are you typically reaching out to them after a sprint? Is it through email, text messaging?
Yeah, for sure.
What type of messaging are you giving them?
So it's through email. Maybe, sure, get ready to, well, this is being recorded, so you'll have this, but I was going to say, get ready to hit a screenshot. I'll show you an actual real world example because I can. So let me just pull it up, and then I'll put sharing back on so you don't see anything weird. But I will show you a reach out I did for Wework. This use case that Ryan's referring to, so we reached out to 225. By the way, they were back-end engineers in New York City, so that's another reason I picked them. But yeah, so we reached out to them, and we used the template. I mean, it wasn't hard to kind of sell Wework because obviously it was, really popular a number of months back for sure. And it was pretty easy to introduce people, but I'm just gonna find it real quick. I just want to show you the Wework template because I think you guys would be impressed with it. Again, it worked really good. I then used it again for Appian. And so when I say I recycle things, I like to start with what's worked before. And then what I mean by iterative is to say, okay, hey, this worked really good for Wework. Hey, client that begins with an A, let's use it for you guys too. right? And so the idea is that, you know, you're reaching out to the same types of people. This one was called a senior developer, but in this template option, what we went with is, yes, you're going to personalize it, but hey, what if you, since it's software engineers, and through reading GitHub profiles over the years and looking at Reddit and Quora and Stack Overflow and all these different places where techies hang out, we've learned and we've adopted in our culture here at Paired Sourcing, like TLDR. So why don't you try with a TLDR and just go for it? And then, you know, in this one, we got a couple.
I love that.
Sweet. Carmen approved. We're 2 thumbs up. And we co-author too. So it's not just paired up on research and 2 thumbs up on every candidate, but then I would send this to Carmen, we would iterate, and then we would present together to the hiring team, like, hey, this is the, because you only get 1 shot, right? Like we talk a lot about, like, go ahead, shoot your shot, when in doubt, send it out. But it's got to work. It's got to be like 2 flicks on a mobile device, because they'll see TLDR, you want a job as a senior dev. If they say yes, they'll flick, or in their own head, right? And then they'll just read a couple things, and then they'll email you back. So that's just one tip. I've got lots of other templates.
Awesome.